my question is, what is it about this problem that confused people, right? Was it the chart setup, for example? I know that if you look at the first company, for example, so I'll tell you right now, most students have trouble with a purchasing analysis because of the setup of the chart. We know that we're talking about mask, right? I just made it up, but they're saying that without including the initial cost, that you have $100 and that will allow you to buy 10,000 masks, right? So this is costs, mass, and then unit cost. So this right here, I'll just circle it as number one is the first pitfall students have. Unit cost, right? Obviously there's a fraction here. What's the fraction? Is it 100 over 10,000 or 10,000 over 100? So first thing is to remember that it's the cost amount, right? So that's the first pitfall, if you will. The other thing to remember, it's kind of like number two here, is that if you happen to read the problem, you're going to see me put 50,000 here, and you might go, oh, where did 50,000 come from? I'm going to pull up the problem really quick. Where's the app? Where's my box app? Oh, there it is. You're going to see right here that this is my textbook. If you're curious as to where this information is coming from. And here is number 27. Right, it says right here, so I'm going to zoom up as close as I can so you can see that we're focusing on number 27. There's company one's numbers, but right underneath that, you can see where it says, let's suppose we predict to use 50,000 N95 respirators per month. That number must be given to you. Otherwise, you can't do this problem for prediction purposes. In other words, when you do this fraction right here for the first pitfall, that number one, this is, in other words, cost for single mask. Just to really hit that nail in the head if you don't understand what I mean by saying unit cost right there, okay? And again, 50,000 is however many that the problem provides you. So that's the first 1.5 pitfall right there. I know I labeled it 2, but that's that. The other thing is this maintenance fee, right? This fee, if you didn't read carefully, is annual. We're not annual though. The problem explicitly tells you that we're compound monthly. What's this number again? $500. So $500 is there, but you still have to divide by, and I'm gonna write it in black, 12. Why 12? 12 months in a year. And then now you can go finally to your total monthly cost. Total monthly costs. The way I did this visually, if you recall from our last week together, was that you can think of this as a big parenthetical expression, and then you have to add these two together. And remember, one step further is don't simplify the fractions. They don't always come out nicely. 100 over 10,000 does simplify to an easy number to multiply, but 500 over 12 does not. So you're going to punch all this on your calculator, and you should receive, excuse me, the number of 541.67. So this is the cost per month if you went with company one. And just as a reminder, you just found, or we just found, the recurring payment for the first company right there. So remember, the purpose of this chart is to find recurring payment. Now, if this was your main pitfall, I guess I should write a number 3 here, right? That's the setup. And the nice thing is that, as I mentioned before, you do it correctly with the first company, the second company will follow through and just enter those exact details. Now, some students said that, oh, well, it wasn't this part I had trouble with, it was the annuity. So just in case, I'm gonna scroll up just a touch. The annuity you need, as you already know, is already a present value annuity, specifically this one. Where should I write this? I guess I'll write in the middle. No, I'll write it, no, yeah, I'll write it here. No, I'll write it here. Present value R1 minus 1 plus I negative n. So I had my own schizo moment as to where to write this. And then remember, your compounding period is already 12. And that second paragraph after you're writing about the two companies, right? They already provide those details as well. They are, interest rate is 0.0624 over the CP. And then I said for how many years on this one? 5.5, okay. So n equals 5.5. I don't write it across, but I do it for space saving reasons. Again, if you're doing company one, that implies the present value of 1 is that 541.67, and the rest should be straightforward, right? And the only difference between this and company 2 is the number in purple, right? Normally I would do the second company in a different color, and then, excuse me, and you can see that the calculation's exactly the same. It's just that only the recurring payment changes. This is -1, -66, right? And then this will give you a present value answer. Again, these answers are in the back of my book. I thought I put on do not disturb, so I shouldn't get any notifications. 30,195.24. And remember, the last step is that you have to compare. To compare, you have to add the initial cost for this company, which was initial costs. Maybe 10,000? Yeah, 10,000. And then you end up adding up these two together. So just so I can be very clear or transparent or explicit, whatever your favorite verb is, maybe it's adjective. I can't think right now, adverb. It's that everything you see in purple is just the first company, right? So if we pause for a moment, you take a quick scan of this. Remember, we're missing, quote unquote, or I haven't written out company 2, because the thing is that once you have company 1 written properly like this, these are all the correct numbers, correct setup, and everything of nature, company 2 just follows suit. And then when you get to the very end here, you just compare the numbers, okay? So let me flip back to the chat really quick, see if anybody wrote anything, which you didn't, which is fine. What questions do we have on 27 in terms of setup, problem, understanding, all that jazz?
Could you write out the syntax?
Sure. Now, if for those, I had a couple of emails, maybe 2, maybe 1 even, asking about how do I go about this if I don't have a calculator, right? Or, oh, I remember, someone asked, what is the best recommendation if you do not have a calculator? And the nice thing is that because you'll be doing these obviously by hand and paper, paper and pencil, you still have access to your technology, in this case, your computer, your phone. Don't do it on the phone, do it on the computer. And the reason is that you can do it like this. Let me write out the syntax first. That sounded like Janet, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So let me write this out really quick, and then I'm actually going to demonstrate this for you on, on what do you call it? What I mean by Google. Sorry, that's one. Sorry, I didn't write my little boxes. So 1 minus parentheses 1 plus 0.0624 divide by 12 parentheses. So this is more so for those that have a calculator, right? So do it this way. Yeah, that's good. If you do not have a calculator, I'll tell you what to do in a moment. Just also make sure, scream if I'm missing anything. 1 minus 1 plus 1 minus 1 plus point negative. Yeah, there we go. That's right. 541.67, then equal sign. And I guess you can think of this as the third mistake that most students do, is that they do the division sign correctly, but they forget to open the parentheses for the denominator fraction, or the fraction in the denominator, I should say. Okay, so there's the calculator syntax right there. Now, what if, I know there's a slight lag, so I'll give it a couple of seconds. What if you have all of this, but no proper calculator, right? No scientific calculator, no graphing calculator, no calculator that maintains or retains the syntax as you move from one calculation to another, right? And this is what you do. I always say use Google as a calculator, not Google calculator, Google as a calculator. So you go to google.com or whatever your preferred search engine is, but Google works, and you type it out, right? 1 minus parentheses 1 plus 0.0624 divided by 12, close your parentheses, caret, negative 66. So what happens is that you get this, right? That's the hardest part. Then you go times what? It was, now you can use the calculator here, 541.67. So you see what I did was in the search bar itself, I wrote out 1 minus 1 plus blah, 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 raised to whatever power. Then it's this, so you hit equals, and then you divide, and don't forget the parentheses, 0.0624 divided by 12 equals, and see, that's the exact number that I got. Does anybody need to see that again? All right, so you go to, again, your web browser. On your computer, it's easier to type than your phone because you have to tap it and everything. On the computer, it's nice because you have to deliberately push every key that you need, and I think it's easier to see if you make any typos. But you do that, you type out the longest part right there, generally step 1. And then voila, you get the same exact answer as well. Okay, so good question and good alternative for those that do not have a formal calculator. What other questions do we have on number 27? Just 27 for now, please.
Can you just do the quick setup for company 2 as well, the same way you did for company 1?
In terms of what?
Just like listing what each number would be.
Sure.
Like how you wrote cost in the masks and the cost for a single mask.
Right. Do you think you won't be able to follow along with company 1 right there?
No, I did. Well, I guess I could just ask one quick question then.
Sure.
I understand the general overview of it. It's just
okay.
I'm confused where like a contract of where does that go?
So the contract is that initial cost right here.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that answers the question then.
There you go. See, so that's what I mean by, oh, can you just do company 2? It's like, why, right? Not, I know why. Why is because of, sorry, I didn't recognize whose voice that was. I apologize. But for anyone else, right, you're asking why, and obviously you need the help, and I'm here for you. But you can't tell me to just regurgitate all this with just different numbers. Do we see all the lack of clarity that provides, right? So when you ask for questions and I rebuttal, especially without me being here in person, you guys are used to my teaching style, but just so that you don't get taken aback, I'm gonna ask you why. I'm gonna have you tell me exactly what it is that you don't understand. Because if you're gonna tell me to redo the problem for the same exact thing, but I just have to change the numbers, and it's like, get the heck out of here, It's like, what are you really trying to hone in on so that I can help you the proper way? So excellent question. That is exactly why in this right here, sorry, I'm gonna underline in orange right there, that portion of the chart, I never include the initial cost there, because then what will happen is that students will mistakenly think that that is a cost that needs to be maintained every month, but it doesn't. A contract is one-time thing, right? For you guys that sign a lease, you have to make a deposit. How many times do you have to make a deposit? Once, right? You're not depositing every time. Or for those that like say even better, think of it as a subscription, right? You got Amazon Prime maybe, when you pay the annual subscription, you pay it once, annual, right? Or if you have a gym membership, right? There's sometimes a down payment fee of whatever it is, and then you pay per month. The down payment is done once. So excellent question, and thank you for refocusing your question there. What other questions about 27 right now? Let me make sure no one's chatting up a storm right now. All right, good. What do we want to see next? 24 was the future, no, 24 was the present value problem, I believe. 25 was the future. 26 was the amortization schedule. Question 24, part 2. Okay, so question 24, let me make sure I didn't miss anybody else. Excuse me, that was a hiccup. Question 24, part 2. Okay. So 24 was, okay. So this is specifically about the interest accrued. So this is number 24. And then this is specifically about interest. Was this one accrued or owed? I may have misspoke, sorry, give me a second. Yeah, interest paid. So interest paid / owed. Okay, obviously I'm not going to write out the entire problem, but just to give you a couple of details, just so that people remember, you borrowed, according to the problem, $1,918,800. $1,918,800. You find out that you're borrowing for the length of 25 years, but you already know it's a mortgage, so that's times CP, which is 300. And then the last but not least is that you end up solving for the recurring payment, and that answer should have been where's this answer? Additional practice, chapter 3, chapter 2. Here we go. 9,340 and 49. Okay. So with those pieces of information, for those that need a formal way to go about it, or a formula, in other words, this is what the formula looks like. It is the recurring payment times the total number of payments minus the present value of whatever you borrowed against. Right? So in other words, here, you can plug it in, obviously, but I'll just humor people right now. 4049 times 300 minus 1918800. So then you get normally the key questions that students get. Oh wait, where did 300 come from? Remember, 300 came from this. So remember, it was always this time aspect, which is the n, but then you go multiply by the CP, because then students will go, oh, you multiply 9,349 times 25, but then they forget that you're doing it for 25 years, but you're paying per month. Or they'll say, oh, you do it times 12, because that's a compounding period, which is absolutely correct. But then without the time, that means you only did it for 1 year, right? You only did it for 12 months worth of payment. So whatever that answer is, that difference, that's the answer for the second part of the interest paid or owed. Now, my follow-up question is, how do we know this is different from, remember this is present value here? Then I'll say here, follow-up question. What about future? right? The question specifically is where or which is the correct word, which variable holds, in quotation marks, the interest. Right? And your options to choose from are the future value, the R, and total number of payments. So just like on top right here, right? There's three components: present value, N, or in other words, the total number of payments, and then the recurring payment. What about future? Which variable holds the interest? I'm already going to tell you right now, for present value, the interest is held right here. Right? So answering this question for present, it's in the recurring payment. What about for future value though? Can't be the same answer. Right? You know it can't be this answer. That's for present. It's either going to be the future value or the total number of payments. Somebody type the answer maybe? No. Somebody, anybody, humor me. Or maybe, right, it's the future value, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the whole, thank you, whoever that was.
You're welcome.
Excruciating. It was Sophia?
Yeah.
Thanks. I feel like I'm pulling teeth here. So future value minus R times total number of payments. Total, blah, 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 right? So you can see right here, remember, I know I talked about this in class before, but I'll just say it one more time so it helps those when you take the exam. The number in purple that is encircled or enclosed in the orange box, when we ever pay back a mortgage, those payments aren't going towards the loan alone or the mortgage alone. That is including interest, right? So when you pay back, you're paying back with interest, which means that the number in light blue here, the $1,918,800, when you borrowed that, you borrowed only that amount, no more, no less, okay? But when we put money away for the future, I'm gonna scroll up here, right? These are payments. I'm gonna put a little square around, right? This is what's considered your pocket money. Go ahead, what's your question, please?
How did you find, like, I understand you have to do, can you show the calculations how you found PV and R?
Sure. So that wasn't you, right, Judy? That was someone else, right?
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Okay, good. So, gosh, what was I saying? Future value. All right. This is, remember what I called pocket money. So when you're putting money away, you're not putting money away plus extra money. It's money contributed, right? Contribution. Why would you contribute extra interest to something that's already going to earn you interest on the bank side, right? Or whoever the investment side is, right? Judy, I hope that answered your question at the top because I know I wrote it out, but also for this follow-up question, hopefully it gave some clarity so people recognize that when you're in future versus present, okay? Now, as for setup for number 24, I'm just gonna write out the variables here really quick. So you can see that those details are correct. Now, where did I get, what is it, 1,000,009, whatnot? That's because our home is what? 2,304,000. But we need the loan for only how much percent?
82%.
Right. So then how do you find 82% of this number?
You multiply 0.82.
Correct. So that's where the present value comes from. So you're absolutely right. So that's what that is. And then the interest rate I gave you, which was, where is it?
3.24.
Thank you, 0.324. And again, that's divided by CP. So I know it's not all in one spot, but now I can put this together. So let me know what went wrong here. So here's R, PV equals PVI. Nope. 1 minus 1 plus I negative N. So now, yeah, I'll color code this. Why not? 1918800.0324. So if everyone got this far, 300, that's right. If you didn't get the right answer, that means that it was a calculator issue. So I didn't recognize whose voice was for the second part of this question. Did I answer your question? Or did we figure out what went wrong or?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused where this 9,000 number came from.
The 9,000 is the result of this calculation of this fraction right here.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're already like, okay. Because when I was doing it, I don't know, every time I look back at the notes, there's like how you add the additional information, and then there's just like, I don't know, when I go back to like study, I get confused.
That's fine. So here's my follow-up question to that. And this is for everyone as well too. When you're going back and you're studying, right? How do you look for the problems that look like the problem that are in front of you, right? So for example, imagine if you will, it's Friday morning, it's after 11 a.m. I already released the exam, right? And then you see a problem. My question is, better yet, you know what, whoever that was, remind me again. Let me finish homework first, and then I'm going to pull up a question right now and then ask that same exact question, okay? So whoever that was, sorry, I don't recognize your voice.
It's okay,
Just,
it's Camilla.
Oh, Camila, okay, cool. Remind me after I finish answering these homework questions, and then I'm gonna do exactly this right now, and then I'll make everyone do this, okay? As like a quick study bit. Okay, what other questions, let me flip back around here. What other questions on homework do we need to see for, that was 24, so 25 and 26, if anything. So 26, remember, is the amortization schedule. 25 is the, oh, it's just a regular future value problem. Nothing?
Can you just do the the interest owned for 25?
All right, sure. So interest owed for 25, it actually backs off of this right here. So let me just write this out really quick. So then if you don't mind me asking, Michael, did you get the, what are we looking for there? $5 million. Did you get the recurring payment correct?
Yeah, so it's the $7,007.62.
Why the hell can't I read right now? Yes, perfect. Okay, good. So this is interest earned here. So if you were tuning in, I mean, obviously you are, but extra tuning in the mindful way, right? It is this exact expression here, but you got those details correct. So remember, we gave you a future value or a goal of 5 million. You told me correctly, and I already double checked as well, that this is the 7,062 cents. And this problem I forgot because I have to look again. 37 years and 10 months. Okay, so that's 37 times 12 plus 10. So the total number of payments I hope you got actually you should have gotten this because you got the R value correct. So it's just the same exact setup right here. It will be 5 million minus 7,062 times 454. That's it. And all people need to realize is that if you want to not even understand it, but if you want a quick hint as to how to go about it, for future value, the future value always goes in front. For the present value, it always goes in back. So you can think of it as alphabetical order, right? F comes before P. So if you're looking for interest, if you like mnemonic devices, if you're looking for interest earned is future. Future must come first minus the R times the number of total payments. If you're looking for interest owed, that's present value. So you know that the present value has to be in the back. If it's in the back, it's being subtracted off, which means that in the front, it's the recurring payment minus however many total payments there are. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yes.
Beautiful. What are the
Would you mind-
questions?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry,
Would you
go ahead.
mind really quickly just going over the syntax for the first part of 25? So I keep
Sure.
trying to do the calculation and somehow I keep messing it up.
Nope, no worries. So syntax, that's a fair question. We're looking for what R. So are you on a regular calculator or are you using Google as a calculator?
I'm on a regular calculator.
Oh, even better. So it's 5 million. Oh, let me write the word syntax here so people don't get confused. So 5 million times, I already forgot the interest rate here. Sorry, let me look it up again. 20, oh yeah, 0.0224 divided by 12 equal sign. So that one should be fine. That's the numerator. Here's number 2, double parentheses here. First one for the denominator, 1 minus. Then a second one for the inner parentheses, 1 plus 0.0224.
Do you do divided by first? At
You
the
do, thank
beginning?
you.
Okay.
Yep, good catch, excellent catch. Now double parentheses, 1 minus. Thank you for catching that. That was very good. Divided by 12. Close, caret, negative, no, positive. 454 divide blah, 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 minus 454, close parentheses equal. Try that. Anyone else that's having issues, take a moment to try this too, because this, you definitely need to practice on your own. Four, 5, 4, close parentheses.
Yeah, that worked. Thank you.
Awesome.
Just with the 454, it's 37 and 10 over 12 times 12, right? Is what that
It
is?
is, but let me make that super easy for you. So obviously, I appreciate it for those that remember the methods that we taught and went over in class. Remember, it was 37 years and 10 months. So if people didn't catch it, right? You can go 37, 10 over 12 times the CP, right? Everyone knows that. But when I give you the CP, which is 12, and that matches Let me use a different color here. No, not purple. What color do we not see here? Light blue. Let me scroll up here. When this matches this, it's actually super easy. You take the years, you multiply by the CP, and you just add, right? Because this mixed number right here with the 12 and multiplying by the 12, it'll get rid of that. It will cancel out, if you will. Or they'll have a common multiple and then they'll cross cancel, you know, however you want to think of it in terms of fractions. But yeah. Does that make sense too? The mixed number, okay, good. The mixed number comes into play when I'm real dickish and I provide a compounding period that is different from the time. For example, I would say the compounding period is 12, but then I would tell you to give it to me in 37 years and 37 weeks. That's when it's real prickish right there. And then you're kind of like, oh, this sucks so much. But when we're doing annuities, as you and the whole class and my other class too have seen, you don't have to worry about any mixed numbers. If I give you a broken up time, such as this 37 years and 10 months, it's on purpose because there is a way to do it in an easier fashion. And it's like that, what I just have written right here in the upper right-hand corner for those that are looking closely right there. So don't worry, you don't have to do any crazy mixed fractions. However, if you are doing it, it'll still work either way. All right. What other questions? Let me double check in the chat room. Ah, there is. Where does the 454 come from? Okay, we just answered that, which is good. Jessica, we answered that, right?
Can you just explain that again? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
That's fine. 454 comes from the fact that it is 37 years and 10 months, right? So that's our time frame right there. However, whenever we do these questions involving a compounding period, we can't use those numbers. We have to give it all in the compounding period denomination. In this case, it's 12. So here, I'm gonna put a little star here again. That's the compound period. This is our time frame. So if we take 37 times the compounding period plus 10, that's going to equal our 454 here.
Okay.
454 what? Months in this case.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
all of that on the, you're welcome. In the upper right-hand corner is pertaining to the 454. In addition to whoever it was that was asking about the mixed number, which again is correct. However, realize that when the annuity equations are used, they're a lot more complicated. That's why we're talking about syntax. That's why people are talking about, hey, I'm having trouble with this calculator. So I can't give you an additionally more difficult version of the problem by just throwing it in there for the fun of it. So there's always a way for it to simplify, if you will. What other homework questions? Let me flip back here. All right. All right, good. So Camila's question, right? She was going like, hey, when I'm doing this, even though it's open node and all that fun stuff, I'm having trouble in terms of, and this may not be limited to just her, it may be some of you, it's just that she spoke up first. And she goes, hey, I'm having trouble identifying the problem or following along, or sometimes there's a little caveat or whatever the case may be. So how do you go about that? If you recall, if you go back to what I posted in specific to the distance learning folder, I created this mind map for you, right? And it's a nice little trail, if you will, of how to go about problems when you run into them. So annuities is a total amount for later or now, and then you can see I just branch it out and I go from there, right? So this is helpful But then what happens when you're in the heat of the moment, if you will, and you're trying to figure it out, whatever the case may be. So say I write a problem for you right now. Excuse me. So I write something like this, example 1. And don't worry, I'll still open it up to questions that people may have about, for example, the appendix section where the exam 2 questions are, and then other questions and everything like that. But just for a brief moment, I want people to read this. You don't have to type it out or write it out if you want to, but you're gonna read this, and someone or anyone is gonna tell me their methodology as to how they approach this problem and why. In fact, we're gonna have multiple people do that, right? So I'm not gonna force anyone, but someone definitely has, several someones definitely have to share so that we see what kind of line of thinking we're going through. So say you have something like this. Let's say, multiple deposits. Depositing, what's today's date? Oh, that's right, April Fools. April Fools, everyone. $401 every week into an account paying 4.01% compound weekly. Done over 40 years. How much would be in the account after maturity? How much interest was accrued? So my question to every one of you is, how do you go about this problem, right? I know how I go about this problem. It's the way I've been teaching it, right? But when you take the time to read this and you get frustrated, or you're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to do this, or it's freaking me out a little bit, or whatever is going through your mind, when you have a moment to, take a deep breath and go, all right, cool, I'm ready to attack this now. What do? Do you flip through your notes? Do you look at a problem? Do you find a problem in my notes to go about it? How does one go about this? Because the way I go about it is the same way I've been teaching it. I tell you to look for a certain thing first, and from there, it branches out in terms of, hey, this is what you're supposed to do next. Since you know this, since you know A, you can do B. Since you know B, you can do C, and so on and so forth. So perhaps it will behoove everyone for the class to see how someone else goes about it aside from just me. And by the way, before anyone answers, if you're gonna go about it the same exact way as I do, you don't have to answer because you're already regurgitating, if you will, what I'm talking about. It's you being able to reproduce what I can do in class the same exact way I can do it. You either have a good memory or you have a great understanding, and that's what makes sense to you. So for those that do it more or less the same exact way as I do, you don't have to answer, because we need a different perspective, because I need to know what is the confusing part when someone reads a question like this. So it doesn't have to be Camila, but just anyone, when you're reading this, tell me what you do first. I mean, aside from read the question, of course.
I guess for me, I know it's talking about future value and like saving and everything, but I
Okay.
will like flip through my notes and find words that like pretty much match up to the same question, so I can like know which formula to use and so on.
Yeah, I do the
Okay.
same.
Okay, that's perfect, right? You look at the syntax, I'm sorry, well, it's this time written syntax. You look at the syntax and you go, okay, cool, I know it's future. So then I go and I look through the notes and I look for the one that matches the wording the best. Sure, that absolutely makes sense. And in fact, it makes a lot more sense when you're doing social sciences classes like philosophy, sociology, psychology, even history, because you know the exact wording you're looking for. But the problem is that when you have a prick of a teacher like me, sometimes I write things a little bit different. Sometimes my English is not on point. But no matter what I'm doing that's a little bit off, the core information is there. So instead of going to your notes, how about this? Here's my suggestion. Go to the formula sheet.
Are we just
Do that.
using the formulas on the third row?
Technically, yeah. But say you didn't know that, right? Say you're looking at your formula sheet. So everyone that is not doing it the way I do it in class should be definitely looking at your formula sheet right now. And don't worry, I'm not going to make you flip your cameras on and be like, you show me your formula sheet. You show me, you're adults here. Everyone should be looking at the formula sheet. If you did not realize that your second exam is only on the equations on the third row, well, I'm telling you again, it's only on the formulas on the third row. But say you didn't even know that. Which formulas have an F involved? So you're looking and hopefully you realize that, oh, it's the first row. Oh, it's also the second row. Oh, damn, it's the third row, except for the first two columns. Those are the only ones that have F's in them. You're like, okay, cool. That doesn't help me much. So you realize it's future. Now, what do you go from there? Say you do find the point of looking as the two people that just said right now, they go, oh, I use future and I look for the problem that looks exactly like this, so I know which formula to use, okay? The problem is that I just pointed everyone to the formula sheet and you're telling me that, oh crap, you have a first row and a second row and a third row with two first columns that have an F in it. Okay, that doesn't help me. Well, let's keep on reading the question. What else speaks to you here when you reread it? So you plan on saving for the future with multiple deposits. Just that first sentence right there. So what happens when you look through the problems, right? And you go, oh, I'm gonna look for the problem that looks like the closest wording to this, and you don't find that problem. What do you try next? So again, my question, sorry, go ahead.
When you look at the problem, if you see like reoccurring payments, that's different than the other ones.
All right, cool. So my question was, again, for the whole class, was that what if you see future and you start looking for problems, but you don't find what you're looking for, right? Because if you find it, then you're done, hopefully, right? So let me write this down on the right side right here. So I'll go student strategy. So number one, you realize it's future. Number two, find a problem. Find a matching problem. But then my proposal is that, what if you don't find it? If you don't find it, obviously the intuitive thing is like, throw your hands up in the air and go like, I don't know what's going on, okay? But you do that for a moment and then you dial it back and you go, okay, let me reread the problem. You plan on saving for the future with multiple deposits, okay? So someone else said, hey, read further. They go, I read further when I can't find something that matches. So they said, hey, I look for something called recurring for there, because you learn that the annuities, they have a recurring payment with the R, but hopefully people realize that the multiple deposits are analogous to your recurring payments, right? So you look back at your formula sheet again, and then you go, okay, which of these formulas have multiple deposits or recurring payments? So if you look at the first row, everyone should know, and if you don't, you should be writing it in. You actually should have written it in already for the first exam, that the first row, there are no multiple deposits there. There's no recurring payments there. You look at the second row, no recurring payments there as well. No multiple deposits there as well. In fact, it's compound continuously, okay? Which means it leaves only the third row. So third row, you got the first one that says future value equals formula. And then the second column, you have recurring payment equals formula. So then my last question for you now is that what if you did not, okay? And then the last question I'm asking for the students is that now that you know it's the third row in the first two columns, how do you know which one to pick?
Wait, sorry, what makes it the first two columns again?
Well, if you look at number one, it says future, right? For the student strategy on the right-hand side. One of your
Yeah.
classmates said that it's future. So if you look at the third row, the first two have an F in it. The second two have a P in it.
Yeah, got it.
So say you boil it down, right? You find, again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot here, but I think it's needed. Again, for those that don't do it exactly like I do in class, you see future first, right? You don't attack the compounding period first, which is fine. You see future, you look for a problem. You don't find a problem that matches, or you do. You find a problem, you're done, that matches. You don't find a problem, you read on, you find future, and then all of a sudden you say multiple deposits. So that's what happens when you don't find the exact problem. Then you go back and I tell you, hey, multiple deposits means something. So you flip back to the formula sheet and we're now agreeing that it is the third row and you got two choices now. You got a 50-50 chance. And now under number 3 here for student strategy, I'm asking, how do you know which one is it?
It would be the first one because you're trying to find the future, so you don't know what the future holds yet.
And it would also be the first one because it tells you how much you're depositing rather than you finding out how much you're depositing.
Okay, perfect. So the first response, that sounds like the students that, if that's what sounds like is going through your head, those are the students that are not following my methodology to a T. And again, that's okay. So that is one way to think about it, that your multiple, sorry, I forgot who that first person, the way they said it, but they said something to the effect of you're putting it into the future and you're putting it into the future and what it holds. And so you don't have that holding. The person that responded secondly, thank you, you realize that you are paying 401 every week. What that implies is that you have a recurring payment. If you have the recurring payment, that implies that the future value is unknown, right? Another way to think about this, and I'll write this just in the middle between these two. So between this strategy, student strategy, for you all that take what I say in class, but you start to do it your own way, which is fine. The big picture here is what? That the total amount is 1 in the future, right? In other words, you are earning that total amount in the future, and 2, it's unknown. Since you know that the total amount is in the future and it's unknown, that implies that you use this formula. The other thing to realize is that this essence of total amount that's happening in the future and it's unknown, it has to do with an annuity, right? Earlier, I said that you already know that's an annuity because of the multiple payments and whatnot, right? The other underlining aspect is that when you're doing this, right, the total amount, that large sum, right, that you're earning towards or you're borrowing against, right, that's supposed to imply that there's some large sum that you either know or you don't know, right? So if the total amount is for the future and you don't know it, that means you're looking for it, right? I mean, there's other ways to go about it in that center column as I drew right there, but this is good right here. See, student strategy on the right, and then you know it's future, you look for a matching problem. What if you do not find it? How do you know which formula to use, which formula to use? Does anyone want to see the actual problem to this written out?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Yeah.
Professor? Professor?
Is this screen frozen for everyone else?
I think it is, but I just wanted you to know you're not crazy. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
I can't tell.
I hope he's not talking,
I
you know?
hope.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, okay.
I think he logged out to log back in.
Yeah, I
Should we
can't find the
should we all
people.
log out?
I guess.
I think he's coming back.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him like 5 minutes and I'm dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, he hasn't said anything, right?
Well, I
Oh,
hope
he's the
everyone's being
host now.
safe.
On now.
I think he just came back in. It says Victor Law is the host.
I guess I got kicked out, so that was funny. No, it was really funny. I was sitting there like an idiot, and I was like, okay, what do you? what do you do? What do you do? And then like no one's saying anything. I was like, what do you guys do?
I think we were the most vocal at that time too.
I know. Oh, yeah,
No,
obviously, right?
definitely.
Definitely. Everyone was shouting at the top of their lungs, going, why the hell isn't he saying anything? Okay. So no, I'm glad that the room maintained, but so you guys were all in the call still, but yeah, I got kicked out or something like that. I guess they got tired of me. Okay, so students, thank you all. So student strategy, for those that don't follow what I do, how do you normally go about this?
I'd say it's something that's since it says compounded monthly. And you see the mortgage, I'm assuming it's 12.
Oops, let me write out compound monthly. So I'm going to abbreviate that, compound monthly. So then you go assume 12. Okay, so this is absolutely correct, but who wants to chime in to say what is the falter of thinking about too narrowly as this, or having a response like this? Right, so whoever this first person was, thank you for answering, right? But the thing is that, not even but, you're right, you are absolutely right. Compound monthly means 12. But then you know that I'm always going to have follow-up questions because I'm that kind of person. Specifically though, what is the lacking punch to make me say, this is exactly right, this is the exact strategy you should go about it, as opposed to going, it's right. What does it need in addition to make it absolutely right? So that we know without a shadow of doubt there's zero room for wiggle. Or another way to think of it is that, why is it that I can say, well, this sounds confusing, right? It's unclear. Who wants to chime in or assist with that, please?
So normally when I see a problem like this, I first see that it says mortgage. So I know on my formula sheet, I have written like for the third row, all the way to the two right hand side equations, I know I have written that these align with mortgages to help myself out for the future.
All right, so thank you. So that's how I normally go about it in class, right? So if anyone for that matter goes like, oh wait, that sounds a little bit like what he says in class, it's because it's what I do say in class. So thank you for answering that. Now here's the thing though, right? How does that help whoever the first person started with compound monthly assume 12? Right? So my question is, I guess this is a little bit more difficult to conceptualize, is that, was the second person Maeve? It sounded like Maeve.
Yeah,
okay.
it was me.
So what Maeve said was absolutely correct, and it's the way I teach it, so therefore I'm gonna of course go like, hey, that's right, she knows what to do, she knows where to go, she probably knows what the next step is. Now I want people such as Maeve, or anyone else for that matter, to dig a little bit deeper. And what you're trying to unfold now is that the first student said, I saw compound monthly, and I'm assuming 12. How do you help that so it sounds more like Maeve's vernacular, or even my vernacular? My hint to you is that when I read that, I go, okay, assume 12, but then I say 12 what? See what I'm saying? What I'm conveying is that when I say compound monthly, assume 12, 12 what? See how there's unclarity, or there's room for error because you're going 12, which is correct. 12 what though? What does the 12 pertain to? How does the 12 help me? How does it help me choose an equation? You know, that type of thing. So someone else, if they don't mind sharing, how can we assist to beef up the answer that the first student said, well, I see compound monthly and it's 12, which is absolutely correct. How do we use that to help us find the equation instead of flipping through our notes and all this fun stuff? Because The sad thing is that you're going to flip through your notes and you're going to be like, oh my God, compound monthly is in everything. How the hell am I supposed to know which one it is?
The 12, I'm assuming, is obviously for the mortgage since it's annual. And with the mortgage, you're paying that monthly. So that's why I would understand like Maeve said, the other two equations for present
Right.
would be for mortgage because that's something that you're going to be paying every month, and that's why we get that 12.
The thing though is that where did you, or maybe I misheard, where did you find annually in this question though?
I'm just assuming mortgage since like you pay that every 12 months, I'd say, depending how much it is.
Well, mortgages is every month instead of every 12 months.
Well, yeah,
right?
Sorry, that's what I meant, every month, but for like 12
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me guide you guys a little bit right now. So what my question was, right, you know that it's a mortgage and you know that it's going to be happening every month because it says compound monthly. So here's the thing. What I was looking for was that from, let me write this in. Yeah. When they say assume 12, the clarity I need, or the clarity that students need if they're thinking in this thought process, is to say that the compound period is 12. That's what I was looking for. Taking it a step further, when you realize the compounding period is 12, then you know that this implies that you're using either, again, this is assuming people don't know that you're using only the third row. You're using either row 1 or row 3 of formula sheet. Can anyone tell me why?
Because there's a so
Because
there's like N and I, the variables you use CP for.
Right. So if you were the first student, right, whoever that was, you don't have to review yourself. I just didn't recognize your voice and I'm sorry. If you said, oh yeah, I saw compound monthly, I assume 12. 12 what? CP is 12. Okay, how does that help me pick a formula? Oh, I know it has to be one of the first or third row. Now, obviously, if you're like Maeve and you see mortgage, you know that my strategy is, you know that it's a present value annuity. And that's fine as well. But say you're not there, right? So say you're that first student, right? And you go, oh, I assume it's 12. And you go, okay, I assume it's 12. But then what's your next step, right? The best thing I can think of is that if you assume 12, realize that that's 12 for the compounding period, CP, and that helps you narrow down an equation. The thing though is that say you didn't come up with that idea. Say you just say you assume for 12 and you go and you flip through your notes and you go, oh my God, all his damn examples have a compounding period of 12. What do I do next? Right? What's the next thing you would dig at if you're that type of student where you're going, well, I looked at every example in my notes and my homework and they all say compounded monthly and that doesn't help me narrow it down. What would you do next? Remember, this is more so for those that don't follow my usual strategy.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Because I follow you.
Well, no, if you follow me, that's fine. But, right, this is more so for why. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound like a super prick right now. I know I'm prickish, I'm dickish sometimes. But this is just to figure out why people are not following my strategy, you know? It's like I lay it out for you, and yet for whatever reason, when people do their homework, they're like, I'm confused because I did it this way. And then all I can think of in the most polite manner is, why the hell are you not doing it my way, right? Now, if you tell me I do it this way because it's easier for me and it turns out that I get the right answer as you do, awesome. You all, every single one of you know that I welcome that. I always welcome different strategies, that arrive at the same answer because it might be someone else's frame of thinking or their mind frame or their mind map or the way they think. And that's cool. But if you're telling me that like, oh man, I go into the homework, I go to the exam and I just get flustered and I don't know where to start, it's like, okay, cool, that's fine. We have anxiety, we have performance problems in the past, like I have as well. Then you narrow it down. You go, okay, read question by question, what comes first? And so for those that don't follow me, that's fine. I'm not offended. I just kind of go, why won't you follow me if I'm teaching it to you in what I feel is the most direct way? So now I have to get into your heads and go, well, what's your next strategy, right? Normally when people get stuck, I tell them to read further.
I mean, what I usually do is like, I'll look at this question and I don't know the formula. So I just figure out, okay, what do I have? So I make that list on the side. I'm like, okay, I is this, N is this. And then I'm like, okay, where do I go from here? And then I'm
okay. That's
kind
perfect.
of putting a formula like off of what I have or what they've given me.
Yeah.
Okay, there
And
you go.
then,
That's good.
like I see at the end, it's asking for that amortization payment. And so I know to make that chart eventually after we solve the formula, but I'm still like in the process of figuring out what formula to use.
Okay.
I know what's
that's
coming,
fine.
but like I don't know.
No, that's great. See, so that's something that I personally don't do because maybe it's a little bit of my algebra days or maybe it's a little bit of how I was taught mathematics when it's formula based. And I'm not talking about just math, I'm talking about physics, biology, chemistry. Is that me? I don't plug in a single formula variable until I know which equation to attack. So say you do that, right? In 2, here on the student strategy, I say, hey, read further. That's normally what I tell students, even in office hours. They go, oh, I go, what do you do next? And they're like, I don't know. And I go, well, how about you reread the question and you tell me? And so, okay, this is great. So we have I is equal to 5 4/5%, sorry, 5 4/5%, okay, which is basically 0.058. And then N, it's 35. And we've already discovered that CP is 12. So that means you're gonna do this and you're gonna do this. All right, and as a handful of you just said right now, thank you again for chiming in. I know it's really difficult online. The thing is that this is perfect, right? You are almost there. So when you look at this, right, this information, hopefully people realize, matches this. Do they not agree? If you have a compounding period, an I and an N, and you're like, I got these details. But then you realize, wait a second, this is the same exact thing I did when I just realized the compounding period is 12. It has to be either the first row or the third row. And you're like, crap, I feel like I'm stuck again. Okay, so it revealed same information, which is fine. Now you repeat. You read further, right? Okay, now this is where you want to chime in terms of what I say in class. So how do you know mortgage means annuity? Well, I told you mortgages involve multiple payments, not a one-time payment. That's one thing you can think of. I'll write that down if someone needs it. Another thing to realize is that, oh, it says amortization schedule. I know that a chart is coming up. How do I go about it? Well, once you realize it's an amortization schedule as a hint, you flip to the amortization problems. Boom, you're done there. Again, that's a little bit harder when it's not an open note test, but you get the idea. Last strategy is that you go, okay, well, what if I still don't trust myself that it could be the first row? How do I know it's not the first row for sure? Well, when you read this and you go, you have a mortgage, 200,000, 5 4/5% compound monthly over 35 years, right? I know I'm personally leaving out the fact that there is no multiple payments. So you might go, oh, well, he didn't specify that it's multiple payments, but you know it's not because the fact is it's a mortgage, right? So that mortgage aspect, if you're writing, I think I may have said in this class, but you should be writing a formula sheet. I mean, not a formula sheet, a cheat sheet for you to use so you don't have to flip through all your notes. You should write somewhere, whether it's my strategy or a student strategy, that mortgage implies big time present value annuity. So maybe that's the key part that is left out for people as they're going through their problems and trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And then from there, then you can do the same strategy as we did from the first example as to picking out whether it's the third column. Sorry, I was trying to say the word right, the correct word. The third column or the fourth column. For this case, it'd be the fourth column. You're looking for the recurring payment. Okay, so yes, thank you. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. Someone said, hey, compound monthly, I know it's 12. Well, what do you mean by that? It means that the compound period is 12. So that means that it's either going to be the first or the third row. You're like, well, damn, that doesn't help me. It doesn't narrow it down. So I say, read further. Then someone said, well, I plug in the variables I already know. Perfect, that's good too. Only to realize that you go, well, damn, the first and third rows both have a CP, an I, and an N. That feels like it doesn't help me, but at least I got my numbers down. And then the last piece is to realize that mortgages imply annuities, not only annuities, but present value annuities. So that's how you know that it's going to be that third row and either the third or fourth column. See, that's why it can't be the future, for example, because there's no, when you reread this problem as well, you're not talking about saving money to the future as well. That's another way to think about it. But hopefully people are realizing that by attacking mortgage first, or realizing it or putting it in your financial vocabulary, that when you see mortgage first and it goes straight to the present value annuity, all the things on the right-hand side right here, let me use a different color, all these follow through from here, right? Knowing that it's a present value annuity and that it's the third row of your formula sheet and one of the two columns, you know, column 3 or column 4, once you figure that out, all of this follows through, right? So it's not a bad strategy. It's just that you're going about it a long-winded way. And if that's how it makes sense to you, by all means, I can't stop you from thinking that way. But what I can do is elevate your thinking so that you can narrow it down so at least it is aligned with how I teach, right? Because if you're already following me and it makes sense, great, awesome, aces, we're good to go. You just gotta watch out for silly little mistakes and everything. But if you're telling me to this day, week whatever that we're in, and you're still having issues figuring it out, we need to tackle that. Because when we start doing the mathematical modeling, it's gonna feel like a big cluster F, and you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, it's just all over the place. I don't know where to start. And it's gonna be the same exact thing. Can you differentiate each problem on its own? Okay, so I know that was a lot of talking for just an amortization schedule, but that's very important because that gives me a little bit of foresight in terms of how to help you when whoever is asking me a question and you're not following my way to a T. And again, that's okay. I just need to know how to help you, right? All right, perfect. Does anyone need to see this problem?
Professor?
Yep, go ahead.
When you, basically, going back to example 1 as well.
Sure.
When you make that, suggestion that we should be making like a chart or what is it called, amortization chart,
right?
And you don't specify how many payments you would like us to present to you,
right?
Like, would you even want us to make that chart, or is it not needed? Would the first payment suffice?
Right. So if you ever, at least as far as my class is concerned, if you ever see amortization schedule, I will always tell you how many rows of payments to make. So don't worry.
Okay.
It won't be, excuse me. Oh, I need another drink of water. I'm like pacing around right now, trying to like punch the air and really trying to lay it out thick for you all. Okay, hold on. Yeah, I can't get this riled up and talk without just sitting down. That's lame. So now, like, if you watch me, I'm like pacing around right now. So yes, if you're doing an amortization schedule, just like how, I know I'm going a little bit far back, but when you're doing a cost revenue profit problem and I tell you each unit produced must be sold for a certain amount, it's the same thing for the amortization schedule. I tell you point blank that you're doing an amortization schedule and you know it's going to be a present value annuity. And if you look back in the notes, you know exactly which present value annuity formula as well. It's the last column, by the way. I will have to give you how many rows I want, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. It will never be more than 3 because it becomes busy work at that point. And without it, then you have to do, however many stupid rows there are. So if you look at, 35 years, that's how many rows is that times 12? That's 420 rows. I'm not gonna have you do 420 rows for an exam. That's insane. So for the amortization schedule, I always specify the row. For example 1, which is not in an amortization schedule, but that one's clear cut. And you can see there's 2 parts there. There's the looking for the future value, as in addition, looking for the interest accrued. I know that I didn't get to hand back your exams. I updated the grades and everything. Oh yeah, that's what I forgot to tell you guys. But what will happen is that if someone wants to look at their specific exam, what I'll do is I could take pictures of it and send it to you as to where it went wrong, right? I also uploaded a blank version of the exam so you can use it as a future study reference when we start looking at the final. But the thing I saw a lot was that I would ask for how much interest was accrued and people just leave it blank. I mean, granted, it was 2 parts in a single question, but I saw people circle the question because I mentioned it in class and they wrote nothing after it. It's like, what the heck happened, So just watch out for that as well.
Okay. Sorry to do this, but going back to the homework,
Right.
For 26, you asked like more conceptual questions for B and C.
Correct.
Can you go into like the thought process of that? Because I'm clear on like the whole, I'm clear on like when I have to write all the equations out and I actually can see the numbers. But in terms of answering those 2 questions, I kind of struggled with how you got your 2 answers.
Okay, no problem. Before I move on answering that, that's fine because we finished homework, but that's still asking about overall concept for the second exam. Well, I know nobody said anything for example 1, but for example 2, did anyone need to see this problem? Or better yet, I can do this problem and answer those questions based on this one as well? Or do people want to see specifically question number 26?
Not solving the problem, but just what would the 200 be, and what equation would you use for that? Not the equation, just like where would you plug that in? Would that be present value? The 200?
You mean the 200,000?
Yeah, the 200,000.
I see. Okay, so I'll answer that, don't worry. But do we want to see those conceptual questions on these numbers?
Yeah,
or
maybe
do we
that.
want to see?
Yeah,
Or do we want to see on the homework? Because I won't do the entire problem. I'll just write out everything really quickly and then I'll show you what's going on.
Yeah, that might be good.
Okay, cool. So yeah, and it's a different problem too. So you don't have to see the same exact thing that you did for homework. Okay, so for this problem, you're supposed to use this formula. .058. See, now I'm sitting down again. 1 plus 0.058 over 12 negative, what did I say, 420. Okay, let me get this answer for you all really quick. $200,000 times 0.058 divided by 12. It sucks. I actually left my calculators back in the office. 1 minus 1 plus 0.058 divided by 12 raised to the negative 420. Okay, assuming that I did this correctly, we should have gotten 1,113.64. If anyone wants to double check that, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
That's what I got.
Okay, now let me write out the chart really quick. I'm gonna do one row first, just so people can see it. And don't worry, I'm not gonna talk much here. I'm just gonna do it. Payment number, just gotta write all this out really quick. Payment amount. I'm gonna abbreviate a little bit too. Interest paid. Oops. Paid. Principal paid. And then remaining balance. Remain balance. Okay, so 0, blah, 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 200,000. Okay, so here we go now. 1. You got 113.64. Okay, how do we get this? It's the difference of these two gives you this, but how do you find the interest paid? 0.058 over 12 times 200,000. This gives you 0.058 divided by 12 times 200,000 gives you 966, rounding this to 67. So now same thing, right? You're taking the difference between these two. So that's 113.64 minus 966.67, which gives you 146.97. And then again, you subtract this way, right? $200,000. So you're at 199,853.03. So the first question, right? What would happen if you paid just the interest on payment number 2? So first and foremost, what do I multiply this fraction by? Right there that I just wrote. What do I multiply by to figure out the interest paid for the second payment?
The
Anyone?
remaining balance.
Which remaining balance?
The new one from 1.
Perfect. So it's not the 200,000. It's this right here. That sounded like Janin, so thank you if that was you.
Mm-hmm.
So let me calculate this all for you really quick. 99,853 cents. Yeah, 3 cents. Okay, so here you can see that it decreases, right? We talked about that in class. 965. I know it seems like a little decrease, but it still decreases. Okay, so that's the proper setup. Now, here is part B and C. So we'll call this part B right here. These damn AirPods are dying. Hold on a second. Let's disconnect and just speak via speaker. Can people hear me?
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. All right. So part B here, I'm gonna write this in purple. Part B, in terms of question B, right? My question is, what if you paid the same amount? What happens? You follow through, you subtract. What's this difference? Not a hard question. It is. What's this difference? Anyone?
0.
0, right? And then when you subtract this way, you get the same thing. So the answer to this question, right, is that what happens? The remaining balance is the same. The movement from payment 1 to payment 2 is the same. But then this sucks. Why? The reason is that when you paid $965.96, is only to eliminate this balance, and you didn't make a dent into your remaining balance. So you paid an amount that was sure helpful right now, but not in the long run, in such that you're lowering the interest amount. Because what happens when you go to number 3? If you go to number 3 now, lo and behold, this number is exactly the same. See that right there? I don't have to do the calculation again, because if you pull this fraction down, what's the remaining balance? It's still the same. Now for part C, before I move on to part C, I didn't recognize whose voice that was. Did I answer your first question? Does that concept make sense conceptually? I forgot who asked this question, that's why.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, good. So second part now, when it's asking what happens when you make a payment that is valid, but in the interest amount, okay? So I'm gonna say here, suppose we paid $900. Where did 900 come from? It doesn't matter. It just has to fit the criterion that these have this relationship, that whatever your payment was is less than the interest that is expected to be paid for the next month. And again, I may have mentioned this in class, whether it was the first time we went over amortization schedules or the last time that we met in class. Why would we be in this scenario to begin with? Imagine, if you will, you're in rough times, you got to make a payment, you're affected by the virus, whatever, no virus, it doesn't matter. The point is that the bank has a range where you can make a minimum payment so that you don't incur any late fees and any penalties or whatnot. But the thing is that it's not enough to make the interest go away. So what happens now? Now in green, right, we subtract now. So I'm going to get rid of this. We're going to subtract. What happens? We get a negative number. But what does it mean to be negative $65.96 when we're in the principal paid? Well, that doesn't make sense. How can I pay my principal negatively? You don't. What happens is that when you finally make the subtraction right here, what happens? It increases by this amount. So now we're in a worse scenario where not only do we owe, still we owe more. Our balance increase because of making a payment that wasn't high enough to counteract or counterbalance. I'm just writing out this answer really quick for people. To counterbalance the remaining balance overall to go down. So that's what I was talking about conceptually about those. Because to do the actual amortization schedule right here, that is, you can see in row 1, and then if you're to follow same suit by using the 113 here for the remaining parts, that's easy. That's not a problem. Everyone can do that. You had it for homework the first time, you had a homework this time around, it's fine. It's just that what happens when you have these other scenarios and you understand what's happening. Paying off the interest only is nice, but you don't make a dent in your remaining balance. So your resources, when you're paying this, when you should be paying a little bit more actually helps. And when you pay less than the interest amount, then we get really screwed, because then we're not making contributions that will affect the remaining balance. Okay? Is that clear for everyone?
Yeah, that makes sense.